we welcome you to the We the People competition, and we congratulate you for winning your state's competition and for participating in the We the People National Challenge this year under difficult circumstances for everybody. My name is Dan Taubman. I'm a senior judge on the Colorado Court of Appeals in Denver, Colorado.
I'm Dave Adler. I'm president of the Alturas Institute and also adjunct faculty member of the law school at University of Idaho. It's been a pleasure over the years to have participated in many of these national final competitions, and I want to add my congratulations to all of you for overcoming adversity to reach this level. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
I'm Donald Rogers. I teach history at Central Connecticut State University. I've been involved with We the People for many years, judged the national competition, and I know how hard it is and how competitive it is to make it to the national finals. So I congratulate you for your accomplishment, and I echo the sentiments of my colleagues that it's especially impressive when you make it under our current circumstances. So I really do look forward to hearing what you have to say.
We'd now like to ask you to introduce yourselves and have one of you introduce your teacher. And in addition, if you could tell us one thing you were doing before the coronavirus pandemic hit, we'd like to hear that as well.
All right, well, hello, judges. We are the Unit 4 representatives from Wauwatosa East High School in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Our teachers are Mr. Daniel McHugh and Mr. Tyler Marson. My name is Ella, and before all the coronavirus stuff, I was playing spike ball with my friends a lot outside every weekend, so I'm missing that a lot.
Hello, judges. My name is Hannah Lau, and before Corona, I really enjoyed meeting with my unit and just working on our statements in general. And also, I work at a candy shop, which I'm no longer working right now.
Hi, judges. My name is Jessica Gleasing, and before the lockdown, I was really excited for my soccer season, which has now been canceled.
And hello, my name is Daniel Doberstein, and before the lockdown, I really enjoyed working out with my football team and working on this statement with my unit.
Thank you for that information. I'm now going to read the question to you, and then we'll hear your opening statement. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution provides that state legislatures can determine the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives, yet gives Congress the power to make or alter such regulations. What are the advantages and disadvantages of a uniform election process? What responsibility do state legislatures, state election officials, and citizens have in maintaining free and fair elections? What are the advantages and disadvantages of the trustee and delegate theories of representation as they apply to congressional districts? You may begin.
The highly debated Supreme Court case Bush v. Gore created a constituency increasingly doubtful of our election process. Faulty ballots, inefficient counting methods, and partisan gerrymandering all result in common doubt in our elections. With our delicate system of federalism, it is crucial that states maintain their supremacy regarding local and in-state elections. However, a uniform election process for presidential elections would increase voter representation, confidence in results, and the legitimacy of American democracy.
In the past 10 years, 25 states have increased voter restrictions, going beyond the only federal requirement of being an adult U.S. citizen. Some of these restrictions are criminal disenfranchisement, difficult acquisition of absentee ballots, and strict ID requirements. For example, in Wisconsin, a photo ID is required to cast your vote. A University of Wisconsin-Madison study by Professor Kenneth Mayer found that 11.2% of non-voters did not vote in the 2016 presidential election due to voter ID laws. A uniform federal election system would have the same voter requirements in each state, which would increase voter awareness and turnout.
While a uniform election process seems beneficial in theory, it has many disadvantages in a country as diverse as the United States. Highly urban areas such as New York City and Los Angeles would require vastly different voting laws than rural states like Iowa and Nebraska. Additionally, universal election laws overlook the needs of specific groups, including the members of Native American reservations. Some residents of the Lakota tribe in the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota do not have addresses and often lose road access after heavy rain. The uniform election process must account for cases like these to prevent disenfranchisement of minorities.
Free and fair elections are vital in protecting the rights of citizens while voting, and is the responsibility of the states to maintain them. However, they have a hard time addressing challenges such as poll placement and accessible voting. Keeping elections fair and valid has proven even harder. Partisan gerrymandering is an easy way to suppress votes and has few checks against it after it was ruled non-justiciable in the Supreme Court case Rucho v. Common Cause. The responsibility has now fallen to the states to create their own solutions. Iowa, Maine, and New York currently use a bipartisan commission to draw their districts, and Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers has created the People's Maps Commission, an attempt to have a nonpartisan group draw the congressional district maps after the 2020 census.
Philosopher Edmund Burke conceived two theories regarding methods of elected representation, the delegate and trustee theory. The delegate theory is far more democratic in nature, where elected representatives adhere to the will of their constituents. When a representative reflects the values of their community, they act as a linkage institution and encourage more activism in their district. However, communication between the people and their representatives is difficult, especially on a federal level.
Issues arise when a community's desires are split, requiring personal judgment by the representative. This is the main idea of the trustee theory, that delegates are trusted wholly by their constituents to make decisions for the common good. Representatives have more resources and are often more well-versed in the topic than their voters, allowing them to act in ways they believe to be best for their constituency. A compromise between these two extremes is the political model, in which a representative acts as a trustee until the public clearly advocates differently. In this situation, the representative acts as a delegate. This is the most realistic model of representation and is unconsciously practiced.
Although the United States should adopt a uniform election process for federal elections, states should maintain their power for all state elections. It would be especially key during this unprecedented time in our country's history, helping create stability during the global pandemic, ensuring the safety of all citizens, and preventing actions like we've seen with Wisconsin. The Supreme Court's partisan decision to hold their primary on April 7th went against the statewide Safer at Home order and didn't follow suit of the 16 other states who closed or rescheduled in-person voting. No matter the crisis at hand, voting is a right that cannot be compromised, and Americans must do everything in their power to protect this right. This concludes our statement, and we are ready for your questions.
Thank you for your for your opening statement. As you know, Congress has passed various laws to ensure voting rights. Can you tell us what some of those laws are and how successful you think they have been in ensuring that we have free and fair elections?
Well, I think the most important suffrage expansions in our government have started from all the way from the beginning of our government, when only white landowning men could vote. We expanded it first to all white men, and then eventually all the way to women, and with giving it to all races, and saying that you can't discriminate the right to vote. So I think that those voting amendments, and I think that those have been the most important suffrage expansions in our government.
I agree. When the Constitution was first ratified, only 6% of the population met those property requirements and were able to vote. And in my opinion, I think the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is what has expanded voting rights the most, as it made all of the Jim Crow laws and things that weren't allowing a majority of the population in the South to vote, and made those unconstitutional, and is the most recent use of power that we've seen that expanded voter rights.
I think that the 19th Amendment was the best way of expanding suffrage, as many women fought and protested for a long time before finally granting them the right to vote. And women are probably around half of the population in our country, and not giving them the right to vote is clearly unconstitutional, and the 19th Amendment is benefited our country as a greater whole.
And more recently, we've seen the Help America Vote Act after the case Bush v. Gore, which I think has been pretty successful in helping states maintain updated ballots, because we haven't seen anything with the controversy similar to Bush v. Gore since the Help America Vote Act was passed.
You mentioned the historical expansion of the suffrage. Can you think of groups in our time that are currently disenfranchised, and what might be some of the means or methods that have led to their disenfranchisement?
In my opinion, I think that one of the biggest groups that we continually see disenfranchised is felons. There are over 6 million felons in America that cannot vote due to a conviction. And in 11 states, these convicted felons do not get their voting rights back even after they have completed their jail sentence and parole and probation and all of that. And I think that that is a big group of people that we are not allowing for representation and a voice in our government.
And as a quick follow-up, are you concerned? I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can go.
Okay. As a quick follow-up, are you concerned that the coronavirus may lead to the disenfranchisement of other citizens?
I am very concerned that the coronavirus will lead to more disenfranchisement, especially the older population that are higher at risk for death associated with COVID-19. So Wisconsin, our state, recently held their primary, and we also had a lot of citizens who did not receive the absentee ballots that they requested. So when citizens don't get the means that they can to vote at home and they have to go out and risk their own health to vote, I think that this is a huge issue, and we could see lots of the elder population being too scared to go out and vote, which could have a huge effect on the results of the election.
One way to help solve this would be to have a universal mail-in election process. And you can see success in Colorado. 3 out of 4 voters turned in their mail-in ballots, which is great voter turnout. And I think logistically, Congress would be able to enforce this, as they have power of the purse and power of post offices. And doing this universally for presidential elections, and especially during this unprecedented time, would increase voter turnout and make sure citizens are safe as well.
However, using only mail-in elections could lead to the disenfranchisement of the homeless population or other people without addresses, because they wouldn't have an address to receive or then send their ballot from.
Thank you.
You mentioned many examples of efforts to expand voter eligibility. And I'm wondering if that is covered by Article 1, Section 4. Article 1, Section 4 said states and Congress can regulate the time, place, and manner of elections. Does that cover voter qualifications like land holding or gender?
Article 1, Section 4, sorry, Jessica, you can go.
I think that the main way that we kind of see the effects of Article 1, Section 4 today within requirements for voting is with ID laws. For example, in Wisconsin, we have pretty strict voter ID laws with the photo ID being required. And it's oftentimes very difficult for people to obtain this ID, and that can lead to the disenfranchisement of many people who are usually of a lower socioeconomic background and don't have the resources to get those forms of identification.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had a great question I was about to ask, but unfortunately our time ran out. But I want to commend you for a very good presentation. I thought you did a nice job in answering all parts of the question. I was pleased to see your reference to the Bush v. Gore case at the very beginning of your presentation. That's a good example. And then later in answering your question, one of our questions, you tied the Help America Vote Act to dealing with addressing the issues raised after Bush v. Gore. I think that was very good. I like the statistics that you had about the 25 states that have had an increase in voter restrictions during the last decade, and your reference to a Wisconsin study on the impact of voter ID laws and decreasing voter participation. And when I asked you about federal statutes, your answer included constitutional amendments, which are a little bit different from federal statutes. But you did mention federal statutes like the Voting Rights Act and the Help America Vote Act, which were very good. you might have mentioned the Motor Voter Act too, which is another example of a federal law that was enacted to help increase voter participation. As a Coloradan, I was very pleased to see that you mentioned Colorado as a state that has used mail-in voting. So you get bonus points for that. I don't know about my fellow judges, but for me, you get bonus points for doing that. Seriously, I think that the issue of uniform, whether there should be a uniform mail-in ballot is something that people have discussed in the news recently. And so I think that shows your current involvement or awareness of issues, and also recognizing that that could create a problem for homeless people too, shows a good understanding of the impacts of having a mail-in ballot. So I think you did a very nice job in responding to the question and our answers to your question, or your answers to our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with Judge Taubman. I thought it was a very good performance. I enjoyed it. I appreciated the depth of your knowledge, particularly as you examined the question of whether or not there should be uniformity of elections. You provided a very well-balanced answer to that. I enjoyed the fact that you were able to cite various scholars and speakers from Edmund Burke to Ken Mayer. I thought that was a very nice reference. I particularly enjoyed the way in which you addressed the potential for disenfranchisement in our country, both with respects to the impact of the COVID virus, which you've already dealt with in Wisconsin, as you noted, the impact on felons, for example, or the disenfranchisement of some 6 million felons. I thought that was a nice point. And I appreciated the sophistication in your answer that was evident in your reference to the impact of the mail ballot, ballot by mail, excuse me, when talking about homeless citizens. And it raises really the question of the great difficulty we have in making sure that all eligible Americans are given the right to vote. So I thought that your presentation exhibited breadth and depth. Job well done. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I echo the comments of Judge Kelman and Professor Adler. Very good presentation, touching the bases on each part of the question. I like the opening of with Bush versus Gore. I think a really good starting place for discussing problems with our electoral system. I think the emphasis on the voter ID is a good way to examine the way that states can suppress voting. References to Burke and other authorities was very good. On my question about the applicability of time, place, and manner to voter eligibility, for the most part, most people think that Article 1, Section 4 doesn't apply to that. It does in some circumstances, but it's mainly Article 1, Section 2 that speaks to the eligibility where the states can set, and that's where we get things like requirement to own land or eventually restrictions on gender, and so that makes the discussion of these state laws on property requirements and eventually to the amendments like the 19th Amendment different from the Help America Vote Act, which is Help America Vote Act is about the manner in which the election is delivered. And that's where Congress has the broad scope of its authority to influence the way the electoral process works. So I thought that you could have nailed down that distinction. But aside from that, I mean, the examples that you gave of action taken, the Voting Rights Act, of course, is very important that Congress has taken are good examples. So I learned from your presentation, enjoyed it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's take this opportunity to show our appreciation to the students, their teachers, and other people who've helped support them in connection with the competition. Thank you all, and good luck.